Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, making it in the film industry in Hollywood is a gamble between sheer talent and unrelenting determination against insurmountable odds. But several South Africans have braved the challenge, with some coming out tops. But what does it actually take to win in Hollywood? Well, Riley Bowes is a Los Angeles-based actor from Pretoria. He starred in the film Stuck, which is featured on Amazon Prime's Discover indie film anthology series, and received the Apollo Award in 2018 for his performance. He's now writing his first short film. Riley Bowes joins us now from Houston, Texas, to share his journey with us. A very good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon to you too, Kirapet. It's morning here for me in Texas, but thank you very much. I'm happy to be on your show.
A very early morning indeed. Now Riley, just looking back at your sort of career history, you actually have an honors degree in marketing management. When did this acting bug bite you, and did you have the support you needed when you decided to pursue a career in acting?
Yes, I did have the support I needed. I'd say the acting bug probably hit me when I was about 10 or 11 years old. I've always wanted to do it. But, you know, I kind of chose the more sensible, pragmatic route, and I studied something that's a little bit more conventional to have something to fall back on. But after you know, finishing up with my degree, my honors degree in marketing management, and working for a couple of years, I finally kind of mustered the courage to come out here and do what I've always wanted to do.
Now, it can't be easy, not only starting a new career, but also doing it in a foreign country. What were some of the challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
It's definitely not easy, but it's very rewarding because, you know, looking at what made me want to come here and what made me want to pursue this career, it was all here. So all the challenges that come with being in a foreign country and having to deal with all the woes of immigration and all of that are kind of mitigated by the reality of the fact that, you know, you're in LA. And you're learning from people that are in the industry, and you're collaborating with people who have the same dreams as you. So, you know, I don't really think being in LA made it any worse than it would be if I were back home in South Africa necessarily.
Now, a lot of actors actually want to go overseas and actually make it in Hollywood. Is Hollywood as glamorous as it's actually made out to be? Is it that much of a big deal?
Well, it can be. I mean, you know, some of the biggest movies are made in Hollywood, and you know, all the stars live in Hollywood. But you know, obviously, like any place, it has its, let's say, its underbelly. You know, there's the good side and then there's the bad side. And you know, people, you know, Los Angeles is the city of angels, but it's also known as the city of broken dreams, because people come from all over the world to LA pursuing their passion, their dreams, and unfortunately doesn't pan out for a lot of people. And you see the results of that all over the city, you know, in the streets. You know, you see a lot of people down and out on drugs and so on and so forth. And that's always a reminder that, you know, you're out here in the trenches, you know.
And you were born Realeboga Kgobokwe, but you're now known as Riley Bowes. How did this name change decision actually come about?
Well, you know, the name change was a kind of a collaborative decision with myself and my family. And, you know, I was taking a business of acting class at UCLA Extension, and I asked my professor for some advice on it, and he ultimately advised me to go with a stage name, because, you know, it just wasn't practical for me because my name was just too difficult for anyone to pronounce. And you know, it's kind of sad because I'm very proud of my name, and I think there's something to be gained out of having a kind of exotic sounding name. But I think you lose all of the benefits of that when no one can actually say it. I think after one try of trying to say somebody's name, it's okay to kind of make a mistake once or twice, but when it's like literally no one can ever say your name, it makes sense to come up with something that's a little bit easier to articulate. So what I did was I just went with Ralebocha, and I kind of split it up, and I came up with Riley Bose.
And have you faced any sort of criticism for that decision, especially from fellow South Africans who are actors in the space that you work in?
No, it's actually it's quite a common thing. A lot of the actors that you might know and that you might admire, a lot of them actually have stage names, and you just don't know it. For various reasons. It's normally because of the reason that I just gave, or maybe perhaps they have a name that's too common. Like if your name is, say, John Smith, that's probably not the best name to go with if you're trying to, map out a path for yourself in Hollywood. So yeah, it's no different from, say, a musician and the stage name that any musician would have, And it also helps in kind of separating your work life from your personal life, which can become kind of, that line can become very easily blurred in our industry.
Now, just looking at the coronavirus pandemic, the pandemic has actually affected the lives and livelihoods of people across the globe. How is the industry doing in the United States? And does the government there actually provide some sort of support or relief for actors who haven't been able to work as frequently due to the hard lockdowns and some restrictions?
Well, there are, productions are happening. They're just under some very strict restrictions, and they're taking all sorts of precautions. Everyone has to wear masks. Everyone has to take tests before, you have to sign that you've taken a test and provide proof and all of that. The government is not necessarily, as far as I know, the government is not subsidizing actors per se. I think there might be some kind of agreement between the government and some of the production studios, but I think in terms of the actors, that would be an agreement between the actors and the union, which I'm not yet a part of. So I don't really know what's happening between those two parties.
Well, do you plan to be a part of the union? Do you think it's something that actors should actually consider, or is it better to be outside of the union in that space?
Yeah, I think it is. It's very beneficial to be a part of the union, but you want to be a part of the union at the right time, because being a part of the union means you can only do sort of union affiliated jobs, and there are plenty of jobs that have nothing to do with the union. Once you join the union, obviously you join like a different pool, and the idea is that you have access to the more, let's say, prestigious, lucrative opportunities. And of course, the union protects its actors, right? So like when you think about things like, medical aid and retirement funds, and they protect the interest of the actors that are otherwise not really protected. Actors get exploited a lot in Hollywood, and the union helps a lot with that.
Now, I also believe that you're writing your first short film. When exactly did you start that process, and how has it been going, especially with the effects of the pandemic? Have they actually disturbed the process in any way?
Actually, they've probably facilitated my writing, because obviously you spend a lot more time indoors at home. So I've had a lot more time to focus on my own creative endeavors. I'd say I probably started writing this film, and it's now turned into a feature. I'm writing a feature right now, but I'd say I started maybe a couple of months ago, one and a half or maybe 2 months ago. Writing is a very challenging exercise, but it's also very rewarding. but you have to kind of get through all the slumps, all the peaks and valleys to finally finish your idea or your film or whatever it is that you're putting together.
And when you're done writing, do you plan for this to be perhaps on one of the streaming sites? Do you want to take it to the stage, onto the big screens?
Honestly, I'll take it to whoever will distribute it. And I'm, as the story is taking shape, it kind of depends on the story and where it ends up going. That'll determine who I think is the most viable sort of channel to go through in trying to get the movie made. But you don't really want to bog yourself down too much with all of that while you're writing, because it can kind of stifle your creative process. Mm-hmm. Getting into the business of everything. I've always believed that that kind of commercial thinking is like the death of art. It gets in the way of an actor's artistic integrity. If you're thinking, okay, are these people going to like it? Is it going to work for this market and all of that? I'd like for my story to be 100% true to an original artistic vision that I have, and whoever will be willing to take it when it's ready will take it, and if not, I'll just try again.
Now, you've also won a few awards. Which one of the awards that you've won would you say is the closest to your heart, and which was your favorite role that you've played so far?
Okay, so I won the Apollo Award for the most dynamic portrayal of masculinity at the Connect Film Festival for a short film I did called Stuck. I played a young teenager who, is navigating a world where he has to deal with all these labels that are kind of put on him. And the story has a kind of ambiguous take on the labels that people put on you versus the labels that you put on yourself, and how much of it has to do with the way you see yourself. So I really appreciated that role. I also once played a character called Ben in a little comedy called Midnight Turkeys. I really enjoyed that part because it was the first time I got to do this kind of choppy, word-heavy style comedy, mm-hmm. which I think is a kind of art in and of itself. So Riley, I felt like I was stretched.
We are actually running out of time, so just in 20 seconds, your words of encouragement to actors and actresses out there who are on the verge of giving up on their careers.
Well, quite simply, just don't give up. I think that's probably the trick, right, to this career, is sticking it through. A lot of people pursue this career thinking, okay, I'm going to try and do this for maybe a year or two, and if it doesn't work, then it's not going to happen. I think that is the recipe for failure and disaster. You only fail when you quit. Morgan Freeman only broke in after he turned, I think, 50 years old. And I think a lot of actors who are pursuing this career can't imagine ever, having to wait until they're 50 years old. But I think that's the kind of mentality that is required in order to make it into this industry.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, your early morning, as you mentioned earlier on. Riley Bowes, a South African-born actor who is making waves in Hollywood.